to speak softly. I don't carry a big stick either. But I guess we can have a metaphorical stick. First of all, I'd like to thank Brian and the Socialist Alternative of Boston for inviting me here. It's very exciting to me to be going in this direction because, as Josh said, there was one thing to be anti-war when George Bush was president. You know, at first, when I first started, when my son was killed, it wasn't even cool then. You know, and then a lot of people started to wake up to the fact that, most of you probably already knew it, that the war was based on lies, that we shouldn't have been there, all these questions about 9/11 and who actually committed 9/11 and the inappropriate response of the Bush administration to the attacks of 9/11 were nothing, you know, it wasn't anything new. It wasn't something, you know, that we just woke up one day on 9/11 and were attacked. This country has been a destructive imperial force on this continent since white Europeans first came over here. You know, it's a country that's built on genocide with slave labor and all kinds of oppression of all kinds of people. You know, and so we kind of became cool to be anti-war and anti-Bush. And the Democratic Party and the Democratic Party operatives, whom I thought were anti-war at first. I thought organizations like Move On and United for Peace and Justice were anti-war, but no, they were anti-Bush, anti-Republicans. And so they swooped in, they took the movement that didn't start, but grew during 2005 when I camped out in front of George Bush's ranch. I camped out there opposing the wars, and I went to what I thought was the source of the wars at the time. And so people thought that that would be a really good way to exploit people's anti-war feelings and anti-Bush feelings to get Democrats elected. And you guys are gonna laugh, because I've come at all this stuff organically. I haven't studied for years about Marxism. I haven't studied for years about U.S. imperialism, even though I went to college at UCLA and studied history. You know, we didn't study anything about too much about empire or movements. We studied about the white guy's history, the white guy's history of the United States. And all we studied were war and presidents. Like, they're the only things that have, you know, any kind of effect on history. Well, they're the things that have the bad effect on history. And so anyway, all this stuff to me has come to me in a very organic way. And so in 2005, I even thought that getting Democrats in power would make a difference. And so I went and I helped fundraise for the good Democrats that I thought were good, like Dennis Kucinich and Lynn Woolsey, Maxine Waters, the guy up in Washington, I can never remember his name. I always get him confused with one of you, Jim, not Jim McGovern, but Jim somebody. McDermott, thank you. And so anyway, I thought that they, you know, and I thought that working for Democrats or getting Democrats in power would make a difference. But then in 2006, when they were running for Congress, they started saying stuff like, you know, impeachment's off the table. And we're not going to hold the war criminals accountable. And so anyway, and then of course in 2007, when the Democrats came to power, and they started to give George Bush everything he asked for, and more, in the FISA Modernization Act, what did he say? I couldn't even get this stuff out of the Republicans, and I got it out of the Democrats. They gave him the bailout. They gave him war funding. They protected him and his administration from any kind of accountability which is still happening. The Obama regime is protecting the Bush administration from any kind of accountability, because how can they hold them accountable when Obama's just continuing the wars for empire? You know, it would be like, you know, George robbing the Bank of America, and then Dave going to rob the Bank of America, and then ratting George out. You know, so that's what's happening, and I began to. I could have in 2007, as a matter of fact, when I left the Democratic Party, and it was around Memorial Weekend. I very publicly left the Democratic Party, because I think if you're going to do something, you might as well make a statement while you're doing it, right? And so I left, and I said every reason why I left. And then I started to just be attacked. Not attacked by the Republicans, not attacked by, you know, the conservatives, but attacked by the so-called liberals, you know, calling me all kinds of horrible names and saying, well, good riddance, you're just an attention whore, and all this kind of stuff. So then I just said, forget it, I'm just packing it in. I just can't even be involved in a movement like this anymore. And that lasted for like 4 weeks. And it was the shortest retirement in retirement history. And then George Bush pardoned Scooter Libby, didn't pardon him, he commuted his sentence for his part in the outing of Valerie Plame, that really had a lot of connections to the vice president's office, which could have had a lot of connections to the president's office. And it is a presidential prerogative to pardon people and to commute people's sentences, which of course they all use for political purposes, not for any kind of purpose of justice. But I thought pardoning somebody for something that your administration was involved in was an act of treason. And so I publicly challenged Nancy Pelosi, if she didn't put impeachment back on the table, then I was going to challenge her in San Francisco for Congress, and she didn't, and I did. And so, I actually have post-traumatic stress disorder from that campaign. And I'm trying to write a book about it called I Left My Marbles in San Francisco. But it's really hard to write because it really was we have to laugh about it because it really was a traumatic experience. But that's when I'm glad I did it, even though it was a traumatic experience, because that's when the whole we can't say capitalism is failing, because it's doing what the capitalists want it to do. And so, but it's failing for us. And so the whole failure of the system, that's when, during my campaign, when it started to be highlighted to me. They don't want our voices in the government. They don't want somebody who has had to struggle. They don't want somebody who's struggled financially, struggled politically, struggled socially, struggled with the heartbreak of the results of their wars for